So this past weekend, I had a chance to travel down to Sylvania, Georgia, which is a place where most of my family actually met and procreated and had quite a few children. Luckily, I didn't take the trip alone. I actually went with who used to be a friend of mine, Tamir Mickens, who actually I found out that is a cousin through ancestry. And we're like, how'd this even happen? I had this dude on my talk show and had no idea that this friend of mine was really my blood cousin. Shout out to Ancestry DNA. So when I was in Sylvania, I had the chance to go to the probate court to check out some of my family documents that I just couldn't find on Ancestry. Funny enough, we came across so much history, so many documents that carried a lot of our family's information in it. For example, I came across the marriage license for my great-grandfather Joseph Hawkins and my great-grandmother Vanessa Reed, which they spelled her name wrong, but we know how this goes. It was just great to be in a place where family once walked. People were buried there. So let's go through the family history on my maternal grandmother's father's side, Joseph Hawkins. Joseph Hawkins was born to Mamie Sims, and quite honestly, we're still trying to figure out who the father was. Because although the last name is Hawkins, there is no documentation that connects him to a Hawkins. But instead, we're coming up with a lot of Lewises and Jones and Jenkins. So it's still a little bit of a mystery, but trust me, I'm gonna find out who it is. Needless to say, so let's go through my grandpa Joseph's mother's side, Mamie Sims. Mamie Sims is the daughter of Charlotte Prescott and Pierce Buck Sims, all right? Now, before that, Charlotte Prescott is actually the daughter of Peter Prescott. Peter Prescott is the son of Jim Knight. Jim Knight was brought over from Africa, worked on the Millhaven plantation, and quite honestly produced a lot of children. What I can't tell you is how we get Prescott out of Knight. Of course, there are so many stories that relate to how we come up with these surnames. But at the end of the day, the DNA tells us what we need to know. So as I'm going through this area in Sylvania, Georgia, I'm getting all of the death certificates that I need. And ironically enough, I go to the place where they say my great-great-grandmother, Ada Walker Reed, was buried, Kemp Grove Baptist Church. Now, Kemp Grove Baptist Church is the church where my grandmother and her siblings, my Aunt Lottie, my Uncle Joe, my Aunt Ada, they all grew up in. That in addition to Taylor Chapel. So after contacting the pastor of Kemp Grove, he connected me with Deacon Robbins. And Deacon Robbins, he took us all around the world to make sure that we got what we needed. So here we are. We're following this man to the most rural parts of Sylvania. And we get to the church and I see this white building. And I'm like, yes, this is where my family used to be. So we also see off to the left side of the church, a cemetery. So being that I have this death certificate that says my grandma Ada is buried there, I go out there and look. Unfortunately, I don't find her plot, or I don't think I do. When researching family history, we come across these roadblocks where we don't have any markers that actually distinguish if that is our family or not. We just know that their body and their bones lie somewhere in the soil. We were also privileged to know that Kemp Grove is not just in that building anymore, but they have another building on the other side of town. So as we can see, they're growing. The next person I was really interested in checking out was Peter Prescott. This man died at 111 years old. And I put this article up on my page before, but for those who haven't seen it, this is a little bit about him. So then as we're going through Sylvania, I want to go to another place where I know my family is located, Taylor Chapel Cemetery. At Taylor Chapel Cemetery, I go over to see my great-grandfather Esau Ponder. And right next to Esau Ponder is his brother, Jacob Ponder. To be buried next to your kin is quite touching. I always find it fascinating whenever people purchase plots ahead of time to ensure that the family stays together, even in death. I've never kept my family history a secret. And quite honestly, I love sharing it with you because as I share my family stories, hopefully you're encouraged to do the same. There's always a family story that gets passed down through the generations. And quite honestly, that's great. That's good. We need that oral history. But sometimes it's also good to get that DNA so that way we can confirm the truth or find out new truths about our family. What I've learned is how to keep an open mind throughout this process. Sometimes you run into roadblocks. Sometimes the stories don't match the DNA. We spent too many years where we didn't know who our relatives were. So now that we have the technology to bring us together, why not do it? And mind you, I know this is not everybody's cup of tea. and it's okay. But for those that genuinely want to do it, just know you're not alone. But for real though, get that DNA test.